terrorist father-son duo opened fire in Sydney. The first terrorist is a 50-year-old father who was killed at the scene itself. The second terrorist is his son, 24-year-old, who is in critical condition. He's in the hospital. He's in a critical condition. So the father-son duo carried out this targeted anti-Semitic attack at the Bondi Beach in Sydney, and in which 16 people have been killed, and officials have described this attack as a targeted anti-Semitic attack. Erin continues to stay with us. Erin has been mentioning how there has been a rise in anti-Semitism in Australia, and she also mentioned about the past attacks. Erin, I would like to ask you, should the government have been better prepared given the rise in anti-Semitism and also the past incidents that you have mentioned? There has been so much hate and attacks that had been going on against the Jews and other communities as well.
Absolutely. Yes, is the short answer to your question. Absolutely. I have begged the government alongside Jews in this country to take the threat seriously over and over and over, and it has fallen on deaf ears. Fallen on deaf ears. People like me who stood up not just for the Jewish community, but for Israel after October 7 and for that country's right to defend itself, its duty. We were mocked. We were told that we were exaggerating. We were told that these incidents that had happened to Jews in Australia were actually done by Jews themselves. You know, we were gaslit. Anyone that was brave enough to speak out was attacked and paid a huge price. I look at this now and I said, this is why we spoke out, to try and stop this. And it hasn't worked. We need more voices. We need more everyday Australians. The government had so many opportunities to take this seriously, to come down hard on hate, and they failed. They failed in so many ways. They were too worried about getting elected. They were too worried about being called racist or Islamophobic. Well, sorry, but we have to call out extremism and call out terrorism wherever it exists, or this is the result. If you are weak on it, this is what they do. They sense weakness and they attack. This is what's happened.
Absolutely, Erin. In fact, another important point that is to be noted is that there was a warning from Israel as well regarding the potential attack, and which was ignored, clearly ignored by the Australian government, the authorities, and hence what we're seeing today.
I'm obviously not privy to warnings that are exchanged between the Israeli government and the Australian, but I have also heard that from Israeli sources, and I have many Israeli sources fairly high up in government that have said exactly the same thing, that they were passing on intelligence that something like this was imminent. We're not surprised. We are shocked. Absolutely shocked, but no one that I've spoken to today in the Jewish community is surprised by this. They are angry. They are watching our Prime Minister on television saying, oh, I took this seriously. We've acted against anti-Semitism. No, you haven't. Your government has not. They have not at all. I'm sorry, but this has been such an incredible failure. A moral failure, a failure to protect in the duty that this government has all of its people, not just the people they think are more worthy when it comes to elections and voting blocks, but every Australian deserves to live in peace. And I include in that wonderful Muslim Australians who believe in the values of this country. They also deserve to be protected here, but they as well don't want Islamic extremism in this country. These two gunmen, it's just come out, there were links to IS, Islamic State. One of them, the son, was investigated 4 or 5 years ago by Australian intelligence services. Investigated. Now, why are we soft on this? If someone is extreme enough, or if there is enough for our intelligence agencies to be watching someone or investigating someone, why are we taking risks? You know, other countries, particularly in the Middle East, don't tolerate this, and they know this threat better than anyone. Why do those nations in the West continually act in a way that is so soft, so that we end up with our own people killed because we're terrified of offending someone? It's ridiculous.
Absolutely, Erin. Erin, do stay with us. We'll come back to you. We're also showing our viewers the visuals, the exact moment when this tragedy unfolded, the mass shooting happened. You can see the two gunmen, the father-son duo, opening fire at the crowd celebrating Hanukkah, and which is a major festival of the Jewish community. You can see people running away. There's complete chaos as soon as the two gunmen opened fire. One is a 50-year-old man who has been killed at the spot. The other is his 24-year-old son who is in a critical condition. Remember, 16 people have been killed in this firing, and more than 40 people remain injured. And this is the moment of attack. This is how the tragedy unfolded. You can see the two gunmen opening fire from the pedestrian bridge, after which there was complete mayhem and chaos, and people started running here and there. And you can see in the visuals, in fact, you can also listen to the cries and screams of the people running around trying to save their lives. But 16 people have unfortunately been killed in this. One of the attackers has also been killed. The father, 50-year-old man, has been killed. But the son, the other shooter, who's a 24-year-old man, he remains injured. He is in a critical condition. And Erin continues to stay with us. Erin, we were talking about the rise in anti-Semitism attacks, but even if, in fact, it's not just the Jews who are facing this hatred. We've seen a rise in anti-Hindu attacks as well. Temples were vandalized. So if we look at the larger picture, is there religious intolerance that is now prevailing in Australia?
I mean, it makes me so ashamed to even think that that is possible, but absolutely there is. Absolutely. And I look at reasons why, and I mean, there are so many reasons why, but we have to look at who we are allowing into our country. And I gave a big interview in America a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke about immigration, and I said, our country is built on such an incredible diversity. We have had people come from all over the world that have contributed immensely to this country. And in that, I included the example of incredible Indian Australians who come here with the most amazing work ethic. Yes, they keep part of themselves that is special and their culture and their religion, but they embrace what it means to be Australian. They value what we value: life, freedom, democracy. We see Chinese Australians who have come here and done exactly the same thing. Italians. So many immigrants have come to this country and embraced our way of life. But what we have seen recently, far too many people being led into this country who do not believe in what we believe in, who bring hate and ideology from places that don't share our values. And it's okay to say no to people who want to kill you. It's okay not to let people in who believe terrorism is a form of resistance. That is okay, but right now we're not doing that. And you look at what we've got. You know, Australia is such an incredible country, but the majority is silent. And you're right, there are attacks on religious minorities, there are attacks on different groups that go unchallenged. And that's one of the biggest issues. I look at the silent majority in Australia, and you know, that's not because people don't care. But I feel like a lot of people just think, well, I don't need to speak. You know, it's easier not to speak. But I say to everyday Australians now that the time has come where silence is not okay. People like me who stand up and speak, and we get hate and we get death threats and we pay a heavy price. I choose to do that, that's fine. We can't do it alone anymore. We're not enough to stop what happened in Bondi last night. We need a collective, and that includes Indian Australians, Chinese Australians, Italian Australians, Indigenous Australians, Muslim Australians. We need everyone to come together and say, not on our watch. We don't want this in this country. It's not what we stand for.
Absolutely, Erin, and India completely understands the situation. India has itself been a victim of terrorism, so we completely get it.